What's going on, Dandy Crew? It's DandyDrew here, and we are back for another day of Catan. In today's lesson video, we are going to be talking about the placement traps that kill your game before it even starts. I have seen too many new and beginning players play the game of Catan, make subtle placement decisions that absolutely eviscerate your chances of winning. What we're going to do is we're going to break down these traps. We're going to go through each one with a little bit of nuance. And hopefully by the end of this video, you will be placing better and winning more games. If you're ready, let's get into it. Get excited, because I certainly am. I want to make a quick statement here before we get into the examples, which is that not every trap is necessarily a trap. It's more important to realize that certain situations have certain nuances, and it's important for you to read the board, use the previous lesson videos we talked about placements and placing out, and to be able to make a good read if this is going to be a trap or not. As an example, we'll walk through some of these key traps. Placing next to a starting road. This is a very common mistake where a lot of players don't see that a player on the way back can start with a road and then drop a road onto their road, and they lose the spot they're going to. So the plow, I think we've all been there, we've all seen it. How about starting with inflexible to resource setups? A lot of players love to go for like a devil or sheep. There's some issues with that, which is that it offers potentially some inflexibility. Again, you have to back all these decisions up with good calculation. Placing with inflexible ports. Maybe you have a ton of wood and you don't have a way to use it effectively. That's a problem. How about building on only one potential road settle? We'll show some examples of that. And the last one, which, you have to make a judgment call, but placing on setups that might get overblocked, OP setups, that 659 or we cheap, probably worth taking in most cases, but you have to know the dynamic of the board and know if you're going to get outpaced by the rest of the board. So let's get into an example here. I'm super excited. I hope you are too. Why don't we sit down for a second, pause the board if you need to, do some calculations, and I would recommend you place this board out. As much as you can, see if you can pick first, second, third, fourth, all the way through to all 8 placements. And then when you're done with that, unpause the video and we'll talk about how this game actually occurred. Hopefully you did that. So here you go. The first placement on this board was 6, 5, 10. And the whole idea is they want to go 6, 5, 10 to 8, 10. Why is this a placement trap? Well, there's a few reasons. If you look at the makeup of this board, the first thing is that 6, 5, 10 is nice on the surface, but you're only going to one settle spot, which is the 8, 10. That would be okay, but the issue here in first is it's not guaranteed you're going to get the 8, 10. If you look at the wheat on this board, the 8 is the best wheat, so you know it has value with all this ore that's on this board. But also, the 8, 10 is a fantastic spot potentially for like the 5, 9, 10 player. So I think if Black was just being a little bit more critical about their calculations, they would see 6, 5, 10 is probably losing the 8, 10 in most cases, and this makes it a very bad pick. So first trap, be careful. Make sure you back up your placement decisions with good calculation. Second, picks the 5, 9, 10. Now, kind of playing off of what we saw in the previous slide, the 5, 9, 10 obviously can take the 8, 10, but you're going to see that there are some clear problems with this. One of the issues I have with the 5, 9, 10 point left is that it's too inflexible. Pointing left to a brick port makes no sense. Much better in this situation is the point up. Now, it is true that the 5, 9, 10 left gives you 2 settles, but frankly, you're probably not beating the 10, 8, 3 at the bottom here to the brick port, so effectively you have 1 settle on the 5. So much better is if you point up here, then you get the road settle onto the 5, 2, but you also get the 3, 1, which plays much better with the setup than simply playing off the brick port. So be very careful about taking inflexible setups in second. Third takes the 6, 4, 3 here at the top. You can see that makes a lot of sense. Now the question for you is, what do you do in fourth? I want you to pause the video and place it out. Take as much time as you need, but make sure you do the exercise and come back. I'd be very curious in the comments. Can you tell me what you picked here for fourth? I'd be very, very curious. Type it in now. That way you don't see the answer. Give you a second. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So this is what fourth decided to pick. The 9, 4, 2 in the 8-10-3. Now, clearly, Red's intention here was that they wanted to go for OWS. They want to go 5-2, get the port, get the ore. But what's the issue with this? Well, I think a lot of things are going to be clear when you understand the forcing sequence. And I believe that this sequence is absolutely forced because if you do your calculations, again, everything needs to be placed out with calculations in consideration. Then this is what happens. On the way back, this player here takes the 8-5-3 because they do not want to ever give that spot to the 5-10-9. But then you ask, where does the 5-10-9 go? Well, we talked about this earlier. They're going to go in the 8-10. All of this has been forced, given Red's placements. So then Black has to take the space. It makes sense. They have the wood and the brick. They take the 5-4-11. Now, they should have pointed left because road settling on the 9-3-11 is much better than pointing right. But I want you to see, out of all that entire situation, we could have calculated purple settle, we could have calculated white settle, and we could have seen what's going to happen. Now, the big issue for Red is that he's playing OWS when you have two other OWS players, and he's way too slow. He needs to road settle 5-2. He needs to be buying development cards while trying to build a city and trying to compete against two people who are literally all OWS. It's not going to happen. And the final result of this game is essentially that Red took road here. So they're sitting here with 8 points. They're essentially 6 points with longest road. And then they need to manufacture 2 more points while not losing road to Black. Ultimately, what happened was that Purple here just absolutely cooked, dropped 4 cities, VP, just built a 10. Didn't even need army, which is crazy that Black got army here. But you can see the inflexibility of these setups really became problematic. Red, I think, went for the wrong plan on the wrong board, and it cost him the game. So knowing this, what would you do here? What do you do here in fourth? I want you to revisit the fact, and maybe if you pick that setup, that's perfectly fine, the 4-9-2, 8-10-3, but how can we essentially change our thought here? We know OWS is not the way. Buying development cards is going to be too heavily contested. So your intuition say, how do I play a game where maybe I go for longest road? Remember, we always talk about you need to find a win condition to fight for, whether it's road or army, but pick one and go for it. I'm going to give you a few more seconds here. Okay. So here is what I've come up with. A better situation for fourth here, which is that 6-9-12 and the 10-8-3. The reason this is better is a few things. The brick port, which should be a little bit more evident for you. You already know there's going to be 2 players playing OWS. Very clear there. The game you have here as Red, I think, is very good. You have the 6-11, which gives you that just little touch of sheet. Brick port, the 3-4, the 8-4. You have options, you have expansions, and you have all 5 resources after your key settles. This setup is going to give Red the best opportunity to play this game, and also they effectively control the entire bottom half of this board. If you cut a line through the middle of this board, and then you look at where Red's at, he literally has everything down here. Now, I understand this is a desert, but you only need so much production to stay viable in this particular situation. I hope this was helpful for you. I hope you can see very quickly going through some of these examples how these mistakes really can stack up and make a difference. Black putting themselves in a only road settle situation, which you can calculate they're going to lose that. White playing a relatively inflexible OWS game, but also pointing left to an inflexible port. Doesn't make sense. I think really Purple played a near perfect game, had a great plan, great production. Their setup made a lot of sense, so kudos for them, and that's why they won. And then Red, I think, took a relatively slow setup and an ineffective one at that, versus if they played road, they probably have a much better chance fighting this game. All right, y'all, that's all I got for today. Hopefully this was helpful. I really appreciate the support. We are going to 10,000 subs. If you like more of these kind of videos, little quick lessons, ways to improve your game the way you think, please don't forget to like the video, subscribe, help me get to 10,000. We are so close. It's incredible. I'm excited. 2024 is going to be an amazing year. I only wish you love, happiness, good health as we move into the year, and I will see you all soon. Dandy is out.